And now join us here on the show. He's a dear friend, and he's been the biggest ambassador for local youth in our community for a long, long time. It's Greg Bell from Athletes for Life, of course, former NFL star. And Greg, listen, people might know you for football, right? They might know you from your NFL days. Maybe they're a big Notre Dame fan. But really, I mean, get to know you a little bit better. I mean, you have a lot of interests. You have a lot of ways that you give back to the community, art, life skills camps, all these different things. Why is it so important for you to give back to the youth, to the community where you live, all those sorts of things?
Pep, it's kind of funny. I'm gonna give you a short 30-second story. When I was a freshman at the University of Notre Dame, I met a really dynamic young lady who was a paraplegic by the name of Lizzie Creaser, and I would just read to her. And I think at that point in my life, I found out really what my passion was going to be. Football was just going to be the conduit to let people know who Greg Bell was.
Mm-hmm.
But since the day I walked into the NFL, I became the national spokesperson for Nancy Reagan, for Governor Cuomo, for anti-drunk driving and drug prevention. So I did these programs for them and went around the country. So it was always about how we can help this younger generation. And so people ask me all the time, Greg, your career. I said, I really didn't choose my career. The career kind of was a part of me because that playing football was what I did. But the career that I chose for myself after that in the philanthropic and in that mentoring space, I've just been doing that. And, I don't want to make it sound like it, I do it better than someone else because we all just do the best that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, I haven't made a lot of mistakes in that area. I've stayed away from alcohol, stayed away from drugs, and people think that's like, how did you do that and you play in the NFL? You just, when you grow up in the inner city and you see guys that have wasted their lives on things that you can walk away from, it's easy to walk away from it.
Well, Greg, there's a lot that we, could talk about here, but let's start with the I Am Gifted camp. Obviously, we're big fans of Alexander Madison. I know you've been plugged in with a lot of guys from our local area that go on to the NFL, especially behind the scenes, helping mentor them and how they can give back to their community. The I Am Gifted camp, it's huge, and we're, like I said, we're all big fans of Alex, so it's coming back, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. And like we've been doing these camps in San Bernardino and Riverside. We got Moreno Valley, Victor Valley, Coachella, Compton. I mean, there are a lot of school districts who have been a part of the life skill program. It started out, of course, as Athletes for Life, but when you got a special kid that comes through your program, like Alex did. I mean, he spent 6, 7 years in the camp program, and you at some point you got to get a new face to it and actually get a whole new genre. And the things that we did with AFL were one thing, but what Alex is doing and things that he's trying to focus on are the today's problems. Dealing with mental health, dealing with social justice, understanding what NIL really stands for. Because there's NILs and they're collectives. So kids are coming out of school with a lot different opportunities, a lot different roadmaps to go that we didn't have in 1980 when I came out of school. And so the fact that Alex is a kid who, and I always say that he's a kid, but he's a young man who's always wanted to be in the National Football League, but he also always wanted to be an example. And, I hate to say that's kind of the same mode that I wanted to be, but, he wanted to be an example of how to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the I Am Gifted camp is there for these young men today, is to show them that, they've got a gift and they've got to be able to enhance that gift that God's given them. And that's what Alex is explaining to them. And the fact that he can openly tell you that he's had mental issues that he had to deal with. He doesn't have to hide behind those clouds. He's front and center and says, hey, if you're dealing with them, you got to get help. And so we've been able to do a lot of good over the last 3 years that we've been doing the program with I Am Gifted. We've got the camp in Minnesota. We've got the camp in Idaho. We've got the camp in San Bernardino. It's going to continue because he wants to continue helping kids and making sure they understand that times are different now, and But the one thing isn't different is how you play the game. And you play the game hard, you play it fast, and you play it to win.
Greg, you mentioned something that I want to circle back to is of course, especially at this I Am Gifted camp, you're going to learn football and you're going to learn from some of the best. I know Alex is there, you're there. There's other NFL guys that pop in as well, but it's a life skills camp as well. Like they want to equip the youth with, like you said, strategies to improve your mental health. I think even one year were you guys teaching about like how to cook or so, I don't know, like any
we do
life skills, right?
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah,
and that's the thing that we tried to tell people when we first started this, that we called it the life skill camp because it was more than football. People, when they hear Greg Bell, when they hear Alexander Madison, the only thing that really jumps out in their mind initially is this. Oh, this is an NFL football player, but there's so much that goes into being a football player that they have to understand, from the way their language, the way they carry themselves. We talk about all of those things because it's one thing to see, but the beauty is that we get present and retired football players in front of these people, and now they can ask. I tell people that's the greatest opportunity that you can probably have in life. If you ever wanted to be a great fisherman, you don't go and talk to the guy who's riding motorcycles. If you want to be a great car driver, you don't go and talk to Tiger Woods.
yeah.
You go see Mario Andretti. You go see the person and you find out from the best. And we try and make sure that we bring guys that are efficient. They've heard from Tim Brown, Andre Reed, Jerome Bettis, Tony Dorsett. I mean, I've had over these years Hall of Fame guys come in and talk to the guys. I've had former NFL Super Bowl champion guys come in, talk to the guys. And then you just got a host of guys from myself, Chris Hale, Byron Chamberlain, the study guys that have been with me since day one. Ron Brown, all the guys that have come through that were with the Rams and the Raiders. You got guys who have played the highest level. And it doesn't take away, we know what their high school coaches are doing for them. The things that they're teaching them. Mm-hmm. But there's always another level that goes beyond high school. There's another level that goes beyond college. And once you've played in the pros, there's another level that goes on beyond the pros because they're going to have to deal with what happens when that day ends. Yeah. See, life skill that for me, it doesn't stop for when Alex makes it to the NFL. It's when, it's going to be a day when he has to walk away from it and how he deals with that. And I was fortunate, when I walked away from the National Football League, I went and worked for the league for 4 years. And at that point, I saw where Athletes for Life was at. And I kept saying to myself, what am I doing here in Europe working for Roger and then come back in the NFL? And I was the first uniform cop. Most people they don't know that, I wrote the manual, I put the thing together, and I used to find Dion, and Dion used to be like, man, you better give me back my money. It was one of those things. So I was the first uniform cop to put the manual together for it, right? And then I just decided, you know what? I know what my passion has been. And it never was about just helping NFL players be cleaner, nicer, smarter, tougher. It really was about helping that kid who's 18, 19, who's getting ready to walk out of high school. How does he control his life and make the right decisions so that he doesn't fall by the wayside? And so I just went back and said, let's do what Athletes for Life's purpose was, which was back then was anti-drunk driving and drug prevention, but then it just evolved to educational services, after-school education, sports and fitness, and then what we're doing now with the arts. It's just those are things that have always driven me, especially when I say the arts, because I've been a collector for over 41 years. If I'm telling my age, I am. I'm 61 years old. But when I was, 20 years old, I needed to put a painting on my back of a living room because I bought my first home when I was 21 years old, right? So it's like I gotta dress it up. And you go walking down a street like Delaware Avenue in Buffalo, New York, and you walk into this gallery and you see this beautiful painting of Patrick Nagel he had put up. And I took art in college. And so it was like, I see this picture and I go in there and told the guy, yeah, I like to have that. And he's like, well, good. He's like, what are you looking for? I said, I just want to get a few posters and stuff to put up on the wall, dress my wall. And he goes, well, Walmart's, about 5 minutes down the street. He said, but you're in the art gallery right now. And I was like, well, what's the difference? You know what? He's like, well, that piece there is $250,000. And I said, well, now I know the difference. Okay, so I didn't really want that on my wall, but
yeah.
it's a nice start.
But with the art stuff, that's just another avenue that you're using, right, Greg, to have these kids see, a bigger chunk of the world. Like, it's not just football. It's not just the city you live in. Like, art is a way to, expand what they know.
Yep. Athletes for Life right now works for the state of California. We have VIP grants, CRG grants. I'm not going to give you all the career names, but these are 2 grants. We have probably over, it's a 3-year grant, a little over $6 million. And it's part of workforce development. So what you're seeing and hearing from me right now is that Athletes for Life not only does life skill camps, does after school education, tutoring, mentoring. We also help recidivism. We also help ages 18 to 32. So we work with the trade unions, the carpenters unions, different workforce development agencies throughout the county of San Bernardino and LA County, to help these young men and women, brown and black kids, to stay out of trouble, number one, and also help them, direct them towards a career path. And what a lot of people are understanding, especially if you live in the state of California now, our number one industry is residential real estate. That's basically land, real estate, and homes. We do more construction, laying floors, roofing, electrical, and I got kids literally who are walking out of high school and they're walking into a $150,000 job because they can lay a floor. And people look and say, "Oh, no, you don't." Yes, we do. It's out there. You just don't know. If you stay working and you stay busy, you're gonna make money, and you're gonna be able to do what we call California ready. Means you'll be able to afford a mortgage and live in the state of California. And so we have these grants. We work together with Brotherhood Crusade. Dr. Gaines is an analyst for us. Marty Sellers is one of our mental health doctors agencies that we use. So I have a kind of, I don't want to say I have a giant consortium, but I've got a multitude of people we can call upon that are partners in our grants so that we can help these young men and women in the Inland Empire. It's both men and women. In LA County, it's just the men, but we're helping them find their direction. And I mean, we had a young man who came in from Compton this summer to talk to the kids. His father was an electrician. He was an all-state, played at Compton, went to Oregon State on a full ride scholarship, played at Oregon, didn't start, played there for his 4 years, came home. It's like, what do I do now? I got a college degree. Just because you have a college degree doesn't tell you you got direction. Mm-hmm. So he comes home with a college degree. Dad looks at him and says, "Come with me." They go to a trade, to his carpenters union, right? Sits down there. His son's always known electrician because his dad's an electrician. He talked to the kids this summer. He said he made $250,000 his first year out. That all of a sudden makes you say, that's not a bad profession. Maybe I'll look at that. Yeah. And that's what because some of these kids are going and they're coming out of high school and they're not a sports athlete. Mm-hmm. They don't have a scholarship waiting. Some of them are coming out of high school, did not prepare themselves for what was going to be next. So they go to junior college. Well, what are you going to junior college for? Your next move might be you should be in the trade union or you should be in carpenters union where you get paid. This is the beauty. You get paid to learn and then you get paid to earn. And so it's a win-win for that young man or woman who wants to do something with their life in a positive direction. And that's really what Athletes for Life has always been preaching, that they're going to, at the end of the day, I remember saying this 20-something years ago, at the end of the day, there's only one thing I can tell you you're going to be. and that's a state of California tax-paying citizen. That's the one thing I can almost guarantee. Because if you live in California, you work in California, you're gonna pay taxes. So that's the one thing we always said for forever. And the foundation has been here for 35 years. Our life skill camps have been there for 22 years, going on 23 years. And this mentoring that I've been doing it's been it's been here for life. 40 some odd years of doing the same thing, just trying to give somebody a good answer to a question, and hopefully it'll make a difference in their life.
So Greg, really, like when you boil down to it, at the core of all this is just giving these kids, giving the youth the best opportunities, the being the best spot to have success, right? I mean, whether it's like you said, maybe it's not sports, maybe it's job training, there's all these different avenues what success looks like. You're just trying to put them in that spot so they can have success.
Give them that opportunity there more than anything. I tell people, and Alex remembers me saying this years ago, I can guarantee you none of you guys are probably going to make it to the National Football League. And that's a terrible thing to say to someone who that's their dream.
Yeah.
But the likelihood is that one out of 100,000, they make it, But 99% of them are going to be California tax-paying citizens if they grow up here. Because they don't really leave. Most California students, California kids, they just stay in California. Who wants to go to Ohio where it's 17 inches of snow, or New York where it's rat race? And they live in one of the greatest states in the world, right? And I've become an Angelino because this is home for me. I've lived here for twice as long as I've lived in Ohio. But everything you could ever want to do, you can do it in California. And so most of our kids don't leave. I mean, it's a high number of kids who stay in California and want to live in California. But the first thing you know about California is an expensive state. Mm-hmm. But the one thing we found is that if you can put that kid in a California ready position where he can go and make a living, or he or she can go earn a living and take care of a family, they're going to stay here. And that's what we're trying to do for the state of California, our VIP grant, our CRG grant, and for the kids in the Inland Empire. That's been a message that we've preached to them and shared with them, whether it's after school, whether it's girls flag football program that we launched, whether it's the life skill camps, whether it's just you seeing Greg Bell walking across the campus at one of the schools and somebody says, Mr. Bell, what can I do about X, Y, and Z? You do A, B, and C. If you get those things done, then you got D, E, and F, right? So you got to be able to be prepared to help them when they ask, and God's blessed me. I've been fortunate to be in those positions to ask.
Well, Greg, I've seen a lot of those things that you just mentioned, in person, the life skills camp, at Cal State San Bernardino, the I Am Gifted camp, the girls flag football. I mean, you were a pioneer. You helped San Bernardino City Unified School District start girls flag football before it even became a CIF sport. So what's next? What's on your plate now?
Well, like I said, we've got the arts. We launched a program this past year called Art in the Schools, where, we've got, 50 goggles, and we're trying to get kids to start learning the virtual, the metaverse version of art, right? And then we're going to move on to where we're trying to help the middle school, trying to get their sports programs going, because there are a lot of programs athletically that a lot of school districts just don't do for whatever the reason. But we're going to try and get things like that into San Bernardino City and get those things up and running. And then, with the art in the schools, for me, is, annually there's a large show called the LA Art Show, and it gives me that opportunity to continue what we do from a workforce development. And that's allowing them to see the arts from a beautiful standpoint. I've like I said, I've been a collector for 41 years. I love art. That's one of the things I can tell you. I really do. I wish I had a beautiful stroke, because I'd like to call myself an artist, but my art was on the field. And so now it's that opportunity is there for these kids now to learn the business of art, because I tell people all the time, we all are today, we hear the name Keith Haring, we hear John Michel Basquiat, right? Basquiat was a famous painter back in the 80s. I remember him in New York, him, Keith Haring, Ernie Warhol. But here's the beauty about it. He couldn't make a living in the United States. His first sale of 100 million was over in Europe, and that's where he spent most of his time in Europe painting. And now we're in 2024, and Basquiat is a name that people hear. Haring, they get to see it. I have to show you. Maybe my phone. Nah, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
See my phone? Don't disappear on my phone. But that I even carry my art around with me. I mean, that's how bad it is. This is something from Keith Haring that he did as a tribute to Basquiat, right? They were all close friends in New York. I was in New York. I used to go on the train and see these guys just painting up on the wall, right? It was called graffiti. And now graffiti is probably one of the largest industries that most people buy. They see Basquiat's painting, which wasn't a graffiti. He used the brush and the markers, and the wet pens and things of that nature. And he made this dynamic artwork, but he couldn't be appreciated in his own homeland. And those are the things we want them to understand. It wasn't because the art wasn't good. And I can only tell you what we know today is he didn't have the right management team. He didn't have the right agent that promoted it properly. Like I shared with these kids this past week, there are 9. I think I heard this story once. Is there 8,000 jobs in the National Football League when you talk about all 32 teams, the NFL headquarters, like 8,000 jobs, right? But there are only 1,580 football players. What are those other 6,000 and 7,000? What are they doing that gives them a living in pro football? And I told them it's the same way with art. It's the same thing with radio and television. We're working on a project now. It just happened. The good thing for Greg Bell is I have a lot of contacts. So a good friend of mine works at Netflix. And the first thing she said, she came to our show, she says, man, we'd love to do something with you, Greg. And maybe we can do something where we can talk about the television and film industry, because have you ever looked? I told kids, it's the funny thing. I said to them this way. I said, have y'all ever looked at the trail that runs after a movie?
Oh, yeah, the credits are forever.
The credits are forever. And every single one of those credits are jobs.
Yeah.
How can we fill them? You have to have the opportunities. If you don't have opportunities, if you don't have the vision to have that opportunity, you're never going to be able to fill it. And so I've been fortunate enough that I have the contacts. I know enough people. Life's been a good joy for me that, you do good for others. Sometimes others turn around, they do good for you. And so, like I said, we're gonna try and continue to outreach as much as we can, because that's what Athletes for Life was created to do. And we're gonna keep showing them, life can be, you can have success in life, and it doesn't always have to be in front of the light. You're not always going to be on television. You're not going to always be in the movies, but you can still have a successful life and have babies and raise a family, like yourself. And whether you're, the personality or the person behind the mic, that you never see, your producers, your directors, and things of that nature. That's what we want these young men and women from all over Southern California to understand. And this is the place we want them to make home. Really do.
Well, Greg, like I mentioned in the beginning, you're a great ambassador for our local youth and giving them opportunities to succeed in all different arenas, and whether it's sports, academics, art, whatever that case might be. So, Greg, always appreciate our conversations. And I know you always keep me up to date when there's stuff locally going on, because you're plugged into a lot of different things, like you said.
I know. And you know what? I appreciate you for getting the word out and keeping us relevant. That's the way. That's the important word. If you're not relevant, you're not doing anything. So I'm happy that AFL has been able to stay relevant now over 35 years. And so we're going to keep hustling, keep doing what we do. And I look forward to seeing you out there this summer at the I Am Gifted Camp.
I'll be there. That's Greg Bell from Athletes for Life, former NFL star, and just a great ambassador for what we're doing here in our local community. Thanks so much, Greg.